Welcome back to Capital City Sunday. John Sly Sylvester is a radio talk show host here in Madison. Recently let go from his job at WTDY Radio, but Sly, I know that you're still a voice out there and hoping to find a new location, and thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Let's talk first about some of the things that Kurt Bauer just talked about, and let's start with mining. I know that you probably have a very different viewpoint from what he was saying in regards to how he believes the mining bill should go forward. What are some of the thoughts you had about what he said?
Well, I'm not convinced that there isn't environmental impact on this, and my focus has always been that if we're going to create jobs, they better be good jobs. And I'm not so sure this mining firm has got a great reputation of creating great jobs. There's no doubt the jobs that will build the mine will be good jobs, and God bless them. And I'm not an ideologue on this. I'm willing to compromise, not that I have any say in this, but I'd be willing to compromise if I were a legislator. But I would want to make sure that those were sustainable, family-paying jobs where the workers had representation. I'm concerned about the environment, clearly. Certainly the Indian tribes up north should have a major stake in this. But I'm concerned that these be family-paying jobs.
I know that one of the concerns that Bob Jauch, Tim Cullen, a lot of the Democrats, and even Dale Schultz have mentioned is that, and I know Kurt Bauer just told us on the air here that it was not the case, but they are convinced that if AB 426 does go forward, it does waive a lot of the environmental regulations for ferrous mining specifically.
Well, you know, the devil's always in the details, and some of this stuff was not there as cotton candy. It wasn't there to impede mining in Wisconsin. I understand Wisconsin has a rich mining tradition. I mean, you brought Dale Schultz up. You know, his district years ago was the mining center of Wisconsin. So I trust that he is not being, you know, Kurt mentioned the recall, but Dale Schultz wasn't involved in the recall. So I think that people really do have to act in good faith. I'm not opposed to the mine per se. I just think that we shouldn't be taking environmental shortcuts.
Let's talk a little bit about what you see going forward with 2013. What are your worries? What are your concerns? I know you probably have a lot of them.
Employment would be one of them.
And do you have any optimism as a liberal that anything can get done to make your side of the aisle happy?
Wisconsin is on the precipice as far for workers. WEAC has to find a way to reinvent itself. AFSCME has to get its workers engaged. And we hopefully can find a way to elect a progressive Supreme Court justice that will protect workers' rights as well. That is absolutely key. And Pat Roggensack
is running for re-election.
Roggensack is the intellectual heavyweight for the conservatives on the court. That said, she only won by a narrow margin 10 years ago. This is going to be a very competitive race. And when you think of all the decisions that have been made, it could very well end up that the new Supreme Court, looking a little different, could really reshape Wisconsin workers' history. That Supreme Court race is crucial. And I hope that progressives don't get sidetracked on peripheral issues this time, you know, whether it be the molestation of a kid in a DA case. This needs to be fought on protecting people who do not have millions of dollars to spend to lobby at the Capitol.
Do you feel like Democrats need to put forth a justice candidate that perhaps isn't as liberal? I know we've heard Marianne Sumey's name thrown out there, but maybe who isn't as liberal as a Dane County judge?
Well, you'll remember Tommy Thompson picked Marianne Sumey.
Right.
So she is not some sort of...
But she's perceived that way, I think, statewide.
Well, you know, I don't think most people have any idea who Marianne Sumey is. I think that because she looked at the law, it doesn't necessarily make her Che Guevara. I think there's really, it's really important that we put a judge up. I have seen cases where judicial candidates for the state Supreme Court don't have that robe, and I think it really would be very important to run someone. My choice was Ed Bruner, who was the judge that ran against Pat Roggensack last time. It's my understanding he's not running this time. He was from the north, and he almost beat her because he was so strong in the north.
I know that you're going through a change, and I wanted to talk about the news industry in the state and in Madison. You're going through a change. WTDY did a layoff of its news staff, of its local staff. And it's kind of a trend, not just in radio, even though radio is a little more volatile than TV or newspapers, but it's, in general, I keep seeing a lack of local voices, whether it's radio or whether it's newspaper. It's a disturbing trend, I think, to a lot of us in the media.
You know, you'd be surprised who's reached out to me in the last week. These progressive groups that are trying to get me on 92.1 The Mic have been working their butt off.
Right.
And that's, the outpouring of support has been terrific. But before we started taping this interview today, I'll ruin his, you know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but Kurt Bauer said, I listen to you every morning.
Yeah. I can vouch that I heard it.
Right. It isn't just about Sly being on the left, because, you know, I wasn't predictably, I mean, I wasn't 100% a left-wing talk show host. But you're right about the voices.
Prior to the recall, or would you say in general?
I would say my focus changed after the recall because I felt it was so important to fight for workers' rights. But I'm still pro-Second Amendment. I drive a Suburban, so I'm not a perfect, I'm maybe not a perfect fit.
You're not a Prius
right.
driver, yeah.
But, and I'm not afraid to hold my side accountable.
Well, that is true, and I give you credit on that.
You know, whether it be some of the problems with a local state representative, or whether it be what happened with the caucus scandal and Chuck Qualla, I was not afraid to blow the whistle on that. I think you can have a point of view without being somebody who's an order taker from a political party or whoever happens to be the governor. And yes, I think that I provided a local perspective and a Wisconsin perspective, because I've been involved in politics since I was 11 years old. And the sponsors will go where I go. They are very supportive. That's the other thing that's just been so terrific out of this. They're with me.
Can you talk a little bit about, you know, do you feel that whether it's WTDY, whether it's newspapers laying off reporters, and we know that the State Journal recently laid off a number of people. It's happened in every town I've worked in with newspaper, that it's concerning that there are fewer people out there looking to uncover stories and looking to talk about important issues.
It is crucial to our democracy. Since February 11th, the day that Act 10 was proposed, 500,000 people, 500,000 people have gone to Sly's office for information.
And that's your website?
That's my website, still up. Information they couldn't get anywhere else. Now, is it like reading the Wisconsin State Journal or watching WKOW? No. But there were interviews and there were people setting the tone for the morning all the time. And there was also information there you couldn't get anywhere else. Yeah, I think that's important.
Going forward, and this is one thing that I think, if it's among my causes or pet peeves, if you have one as a journalist, does there need to be more balance from both sides? And it seems like, especially in radio, it's either you're way on the left or way on the right, and there's not a lot of analysis. There's not a lot of talking about issues that are on a balanced perspective and a balanced level. Does there need to be more?
It's always walking a fine line, because you obviously want to be entertaining. You obviously want to keep people motivated, and it is problematic that sometimes, whether it be the MSNBC Fox situation,
sure,
or whether it be liberal or conservative radio, there is a problem there. And I don't doubt it. And I'm not a paragon of virtue on this, other than to say I wasn't afraid to raise an eyebrow or two with this Benghazi situation and the president, or criticize the president on the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Which,
I think,
by the way, no one talks about.
No one talks about
on either side, really.
But honestly, it takes people to really have some kind of moral compass. And look, I've said plenty of outrageous things in my career, you know, usually meant as humor. Sometimes I've walked over the line. But I've always tried to have a moral compass of, if I think my side or the people that generally I agree with on other things are doing something wrong, I call them on it. And if everybody did that, I don't think everything...
And in fairness, there are conservative talk show hosts as well that will do that. And you know, Bill O'Reilly is a perfect example. He has never been afraid to call out. When George Bush was president, he called him out a lot.
Right. And I think that that is key. But sometimes what happens in talk radio, newspapers, cable television, is sometimes it isn't what's said, it's what's not said. It's the omission.
What do you hope for 2013 for yourself? We've only got about 30 seconds.
I hope to get back on the radio. I hope to make all the sponsors that have stood with me proud and keep them in business, and I hope we can have a local platform here, and I really appreciate everyone that started the website Give Sly the Mic. It's really been gratifying.
All right, well, best of luck to you. Good holiday season for you.
Thank you, Greg.
All right, thanks, Sly. That's it for this edition of Capital City Sunday. I want to thank John Sly Sylvester, along with WMC President Kurt Bauer, for joining me today.